Welcome back to the Morning, Noon, and Night Show. Right now, I am here with the man of the hour, the author of this book that everybody's talking about. That is Christopher Hitchens. The book is called God Is Not Great. Thanks for coming on the show. Very nice of you to have me. I do want to ask you this question because your book represents the views of an atheist, and as many things that you have written are not tend to be very popular. Atheists in recent polls, when Americans have been asked about the various choices for presidents in the coming election, and that there are different groups represented, women and African American, atheists are at the bottom of the polls in terms of Americans are very fearful of having a president being an atheist. So why do you think that is? Where's that fear come from?
That's a pity that robs us of Mr. Jefferson and Mr. Lincoln in favor of what? Mr. Nixon the Quaker? I mean, look, the first thing to say about this is that people lie to the opinion polls. There are not enough churches in this country to fit all the people who claim to attend them, for one thing. Those who have religious doubts do not confide them to opinion pollsters, I don't think. If they're asked, are you a believer, they're not going to say no to someone who calls them up in their kitchen. They may be fighting a great crisis of doubt at that very moment. The fastest growing minority in the country, however, this we can and have established by mainly work from the Pew Opinion Research Center, is the unbeliever, or the unaffiliated. Doubled in size in the last couple of decades. Now about 10 to 12% of people. The number of atheists, actual hardcore unbelievers, is still pretty small. But it's getting a lot more classy.
And do you think, has there been written, I mean, your book might be the one, is there a true intellectual history of atheism? Who are the proponents of that? Who would you point to?
Well, it goes back to ancient Greece, to the discovery that the world is made of atoms, which we attribute to Democritus. How we worked that out, I don't know, but he did. And there's a famous poem in Latin, De Rerum Natura, The Nature of Things, by Lucretius, that summarizes the atomist theory, as it was called, viciously repressed during the early Christian era, but rediscovered in the time of Galileo and others, understood by Newton, taken up by people like Spinoza. Then we have the Enlightenment period in France and in England, Hobbes, Hume, Voltaire. It's not a bad tradition at all. It blossoms very beautifully in the United States. You may not say that necessarily that people like Jefferson and Thomas Paine were atheists, but you can definitely say they weren't theists. They may have been deists, but that's quite a different thing.
But in this line of tradition, as you see it, the secular tradition. Well, there is a question, isn't there, about to me this is really, and I think in your book it presents these two questions. One is about God being a personal matter, kind of the sleepless night where you might believe the soul is going. The other question is on the social level and religion in the public sphere. You tackle both of these, and you have the same answer. Is it fair to say that you reject God in both instances?
Yes, it is. I mean, you're quite right, there are two arguments. One is there such an entity? And would it be a good thing, by the way, if there was? I say, I'm very glad that there's no evidence for such an entity, because as claimed, he would be a celestial dictator to whose every whim we would be subject, and that wouldn't stop even when we died. So it's the wish to believe in this is a wish for totalitarianism. So as I say, I'm glad it has no basis in evidence or reasoning. But then there's another question, which is, should it inform public life? And the short answer is that the most successful countries are and always have been those who succeeded separating the church from the state and religion from politics. It's practically an axiom that will be the case. So my new slogan is, you'll remember Mr. Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson wrote to the Baptists of Danbury, Connecticut, assuring them that there would be a wall of separation between the church and the state in America. My new slogan, which I'm inviting you all to join me in, is Mr. Jefferson, build up that wall.
Well, and that wall, that is a tradition in this country. Let me ask you about, really the big issue for us now is in dealing with in foreign affairs. It's basically our relationship. I mean, you look at Iraq right now. What kind of state is that going to become? Is it conceivable that we can think of a secular state existing there?
Well, at the moment, the parties of God have Iraq absolutely in their claws, and it's a very good demonstration case of what happens when religion is given a free hand in public life. I always think it should be pointed out to people who say, well, if religion isn't true, at least it makes people behave better. Try looking at Iraq and seeing if you can carry on believing garbage like that.
Well, is it fair to religion? You know, there are a lot of ideas that have been misused, or even emotions. I mean, money certainly has led people to do terrible things. Love, even.
Not me. Only lack of money has made me do that.
Okay. But plenty of other things. You know, your book seems to blame religion for quite a lot, when in fact it might not be the only factor.
No, I know a lot of people like to say when something atrocious is done, as is it done every day in Iraq, this is terrible because it's done in the name of religion. I think that's a false attribution. I think it's much fairer and truer to say done because of religion. Why do I say that? Because what does religion teach? It teaches faith, right? Faith is a virtue. In other words, the willingness to believe something without evidence is a virtue in itself. Well, in that case, how can you say that a person who says, I've got God on my side, isn't being more religious and more true to the idea than the person who doesn't say that? No, it's not being done in the name of religion. It's being done by the religious and because of religion. People should not be able to duck the logical and probable consequences of what they ostensibly advocate.
I do want you to respond to something that was written by Ross Douthat, who you'll be actually debating in a very civilized manner, as we shall see or find out later on, and that is that you rely heavily on anecdote. We're talking about the evidence of God, and he that's his critique of your work, is that it's anecdote that is fine, but it doesn't add up to a real preponderance of fact.
Well, anecdote is all we've got to go on, because all we can go on is the claims of those who do maintain that they've been visited by revelation. Nothing could be more anecdotal than that. It's hearsay by definition, unless it's happened to you personally, which I haven't been fortunate enough to be able to claim.
Finally, you do very much represent to the literary community Contrarian, in your own phrase. Can you tell us a little bit about that? It is a rather deliberate persona that you take on. And
no, well, one reason why I'm at least true to this in one way. When I was asked to write a book with that in the title, that word in the title, I did open the book by saying what a stupid title I thought the publishers had given the book, and what a dumb word it was. It's unfortunately we don't have a better word.
Okay.
But if you want to say dissident, then you can't claim that for yourself. Someone has to say that of you. You have to earn that. There are various other difficulties. So we may be stuck with contrarian, but another objection to it is precisely the implication, or imputation rather, that one is just looking for a fight, or seeking to be different for its own sake, or worse still, attention-getting. Things like dragging oneself out of bed early on a Sunday morning and coming on TV. I reject this insinuation.
You do like to pick fights, intellectual fights. It does. It's healthy for our.
I don't like to avoid them. I don't like to avoid them, and I think many of them are, in a sense, unavoidable.
We thank you for coming on and look forward to seeing you there.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. Don't go anywhere on the Morning, Noon and Night Show.